Closed captioning of this program provided in part by Nunavik Parks. Adventures North is brought to you in part by Lund Boats, the ultimate fishing experience, Mercury Marine, go boldly, and Nunavik Tourism, Quebec's far north.
Welcome to Adventures North. I'm your host, Steve MacInnis. On this adventure, we begin a 2-week-long tour of some unique and exciting destinations in the northernmost part of Nunavik, Quebec's Arctic region. It's one of the most remote and sparsely populated regions on Earth. On this first leg of the trip, we'll be exploring the Pingualuit National Park for 5 days of adventure on the tundra and high Arctic terrain of the Quebec Peninsula. To get there, our trip begins in Montreal with a 2-hour flight north to Kuujjuaq, the largest of Nunavik's 14 communities. From here, we board a connecting flight on an Air Inuit Twin Otter destined for the coastal village of Kanyak-Suujjuaq, 425 kilometers further north. Located just 100 kilometers east of the park, this is where flights to the park originate and return. Formerly known as Wakeham Bay, the village of 700 mostly Inuit residents is set among the treeless mountains of a fjord-like estuary, about 30 kilometers inland from the Hudson Strait. It's an interesting region with a history of ancient Dorset, Thule, and Inuit habitation going back at least 1,200 years. The Pingualuit National Park is just a half-hour flight away. En route to the park, we fly over deep valleys, dozens of rivers and streams, and landscapes dotted with last winter's snow, even though it's mid-August. The park covers 1,100 square kilometers and is the home of the Pingualuit Crater and Lake, the centerpiece of the park. As we approach, we can see the crater, the base camp, and the adjacent airstrip carved out of the boulder-strewn tundra. When you realize exactly where we are, 1,800 kilometers north of Montreal, it's remarkable how easy it is to get here in the middle of nowhere at the top of the world. The main base camp, adjacent to the crater, is the starting point for various adventures. Experienced local guides lead excursions through this vast, totally unspoiled area. We're here to take in the spectacular scenery, some hiking, observe wildlife and birds, a little boating and fishing, an overnight outpost adventure, and of course to see the crater. Next up, Visitor Experience Coordinator Pierre Philly talks about the park experience, beginning with a description of the Pingualuit Crater.
It's unique in the sense that it's a very young crater, about 1.3 million years old, and it's very circular. It's 3.5 kilometer in diameter. It's very, very deep. And if you drop something in the lake, you can see it going down for 50 meters, 150 feet. To reach the crater from our base camp, it takes almost an hour walk, and we have to walk another 45 minutes to go down at the bottom where the water is. There's no life. That's why the water is so pure. We have few fish in there, but they're so skinny and they're practicing cannibalism because there's nothing to eat. Right after the Ice Age, when all the ice melt, the crater was connected to the surrounding lakes, so the fish were able to move from the lakes to the crater. But after it all melt, the earth started moving back up. So there was no connection anymore between the lakes and the crater itself.
You're watching Adventures North at Nunavik's Pingualuit Park.
We usually stay here for a week or 5 days. And we have other camps surrounding the park, and we can walk there and go fishing or hiking and canoeing. The Pavontuk River, that is about 15 kilometers away from here, can receive 4 to 5 people in the camp, and we can have tents over there. We take the boat from here, across the lake, and from the end of the lake, there's another 8 to 9 kilometers to walk. It's beautiful. For the people that don't want to walk, that are unable to make the long distance by walking, we have a service, and we can use an helicopter. In the national park here, we have about 30 different kind of birds. You can see owl, you can see falcon, and there's some birds that we didn't know of. So maybe it's global warming, but we see things that we were not used to see. We even see black bear. A few years ago there was a polar bear that was seen, but our guides have a lot of experience. We know how to deal with such animals. Right now we have caribou walking, running all around our base camp. We can fish in the national park, but we cannot go hunting. The only people who can go hunting are the Inuit that are living in Nunavik. The Inuit will continue to do their traditional activities for a visitor to observe, to see the traditional way of living. We live in luxury. If you look at all the buildings we're living in, all the means of transportation that we use, but still we're very close to the way Inuit always lived in this area. The closest neighbor is about 120 kilometers from here. Sometimes we're here for a few days and we don't hear anything but nothing. There's no pollution, there's no noise. You have a feeling that you're the only person on earth. It's amazing. It gives us a sense of freedom and vulnerability at the same time, because we never know what to expect. Most of our visitors are from the north, but we're making more and more publicity to get people to come from south of the province of Quebec, the rest of Canada, United States, and Europe. Right now we have 2 ladies from Switzerland, and they decide to come and visit part of Nunavik, and they end up here in Pingualuit. 3 days ago we had a group of students aged between 9 and 12 years old that came only for the day. So we walked to the crater, we took a lot of pictures, and we came back to the base camp, and they took the plane and they flew back to their community.
People like it a lot when they come here, when they see the crater, how big it is, the shape of the crater, almost perfect round. When the meteorite touched down, it did not touch down straight down. The meteorite came from the west side. That's why all the boulders are on this side of the crater, a lot less on the other side. There's a lot of big boulders, small boulders, and lots of loose rocks. So we have to warn people to really watch their step. It's a challenging hike, but anybody can do it. For safety, there's emergency boxes on the rim. There's one on the south side of the crater and one on the east side. There's first aid, tents, mattresses, sleeping bags, and some cooking stuff. And if it starts to rain or if the weather cave in, they're pretty safe. There's lots of other activities they can do here. We have canoes and also kayaks and 2 motorboats. So we can go fishing and down to Pingualuit River. We took the boat, went to end of the lake, and hiked to Pingualuit camp. About 3 hours hike from the end of the lake. There's lots of different animals and birds, and so we saw some ptarmigans on the way, and also small caribou. In winter, there's some caribous, not a lot, but there's some caribous around, and falcon, peregrine falcon, snow geese and Canada geese, and during the winter, and all year round there's snowy owls. There's a lot of the small birds and foxes and black bear. And in the springtime, there's a lot more caribous around. They come through here when they have their calves. And people come here to canoe, going to Pingualuit, going down the Vashan River, and also Pingualuit River. And the river is going all the way to Pingualuit. About 25 days to get there, and seeing lots of archaeological sites on the way. People love Pingualuit River. Everyone that comes here, they're amazed by the view. We did some fishing in the river, and then we camped overnight. We came back the next day, but the wind picked up pretty good, so we ended up camping again in the end of the lake, and the weather got better. Came back here the next day. We had a good time. It was a lot of fun hiking down there with Bobby and Steve. Gentle giant.
Closed captioning of this program provided in part by Inuit Adventures. You're watching Adventures North at Nunavik's Pingualuit Park.
To come to this base camp, it's a ride of about 120 kilometers by snowmobile. All along that the access corridor, we have camps every 30 kilometers. So if we're cold, if we have an accident, or if there's an emergency, every 30 kilometers we have a camp as nice as here. Very comfortable. With furnace, we have solar panels to have electricity, we have radio, we have emergency kits everywhere. We also offer cross-country skiing activities. March and April, we have different groups that come, and they ski 30 kilometers a day. They reach the next camp, so it takes 4 days to go back to the community of Kangasoyak. And all along the way, we can go fishing because we pass beside numerous lakes that are full of Arctic char, landlocked char, and also lake trout.
In November, we come here by snowmobile. We had a guy coming from France, and on the way had to overnight halfway. And this guy, he was amazed by the amount of snow we have. When we got here, we went up to the crater, and all the lakes around the area were frozen, and he was amazed by the whole thing. He loved it. He couldn't stop talking about it. And that's the kind of thing we hear a lot. People that come here always have nice things to say about the guides. They really like the people that we work with because they're very friendly, easygoing, and willing to help all the time. All kinds of people come here, all different ages, and they're fascinated by our culture. We're talking to them about our hunting stories, fishing stories, and show them pictures. We answer any question they have, stuff like that. They're fascinated by everything we do here. Sometimes we build igloo. They love, they spend the night in igloo. They thought it would be cold, but it's not cold. And if you have a heating stove going, it's going to stay pretty warm inside. They're fascinated.
After you spend the night there, we woke you up. We arrived by helicopter. I was with a group of scientists, and we were taking samples of dust everywhere around the park to make sure that our lakes are not polluted. And so we woke you up by landing just beside the camp. So, pretty expensive alarm clock.
For me, the best part, what I like the most is fishing, then hunting. I like the outdoors. I like hiking in winter. I like going fishing, snowmobiling, skiing, stuff like that. That's why I like it a lot, working here.
Closed captioning of this program provided in part by Nunavik Tourism, Quebec's far north. You're watching Adventures North at Nunavik's Pingualuit Park.
Pingualuit Park is pretty exceptional. The crater is the main scenery that the people want to see when they come here. But also we have several canyons that it's possible to see through the air or during the summertime or when we use snowmobile in spring and winter time. Anybody that wants to discover our environment, it could be students, it could be workers that are here in the north for a short period of time that want to see something unusual before going back south. We have a lot of very experienced guides that are with all the visitors. We try to give them something that they will probably never see anywhere else in the world. It's amazing. Before coming to the national park, we strongly suggest to the people to come and visit our small museum. We have an interpretation center in Kangasooyak, where the plane leaves to come here. And we have a lot of artifacts, a lot of pictures that are showing the different animals that we're seeing, the history behind the crater itself, and it's something to see. Any visitor that come here live a very important cultural, historical experience, I would say. Our guide can communicate in 3 languages. They speak Inuit, English for sure, and half of our guides are even speaking French. So by the time you finish the week with them, you know more about the Inuit culture, the way of living. They talk about their hunting experience, what they have seen in life. You will learn a lot by just being with them, and you'll go back home and you'll have a lot of things to talk about.
So if you like challenging outdoor adventures, this is the place to be. I'm Noah Anahatek. I'm from Gangs, New York. Maybe if you come here, I'll be your guide. Tamangatotsi, Nohatika, Tumasataritsi, alias Wayakos Tamangatotsi, Hanevits Hatia Swindle, Hanutin, the Gomez Nick, the man with Tahatin Rally, Pingualuit, Hanevits Hatia Swindle.
Adventures North has been brought to you in part by Lund Boats, the ultimate fishing experience. Mercury Marine, go boldly. And Nunavik Tourism, Quebec's far north.